Hello.
Hi, Matt. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Awesome. Hey, Eric. Hey, CJ. Hey, Eric, point of order. It's 6:32 PM. We've got CJ, Melinda, and myself. We don't have quorum yet. Is that correct?
No, you do. You need 4.
Okay, well, then that point, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Time is 6:32 PM. Eric, would you please do roll call?
Sure thing. All right. Chair Matt Crabtree.
Present.
Vice Chair Cash Parker.
Here.
Lauren Cooper is absent. She is still out on maternity leave.
Excuses.
Hannah Miles is absent at the moment. Melinda.
Here.
CJ.
Here.
And new member Kenneth Chu.
Yay!
Present.
Welcome.
Thank you. And looks like Hannah just joined.
Okay,
Yay!
and then just for the, oh yeah, Hannah's here. Okay, cool. And then
Anna, Kim choose a new guy.
just for the record, Sergio Renteria and Victoria McDermott from the city's attorney's office and Eric Sampson from community development are here for staff this evening.
I just got to say congratulations, Victoria. That is so cool that you got some definitely deputy attorney, whatever award. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay. All right. And we are moving on to agenda item 2, approval of minutes. We've got 2 meetings to approve here. We've got the draft January 18th, 2023 minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for January 18th, 2023?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any amendments, changes, or discussion?
I always look to Melinda.
I didn't notice any.
Okay, very good. All in favor of approving the minutes as written?
Aye.
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 It's like all in favor, motion carries. Moving on to agenda item 2B, draft February 2nd, 2023 minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the February 2nd, 2023 minutes?
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Cash. Any discussion, amendments, changes? Okay, not hearing any. All in favor of approving the minutes as written?
So
Aye.
aye.
All right, very good. Motion carries. Public forum. Do we have anybody for public forum this evening? It does not look to be. Moving on to agenda item 4. We have 4A, election of new officers. Eric, you had me put this on the agenda. Thank you for the reminder on that. And I would imagine that this is the election of the chair and vice chair. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then just for the record, both Matt and Cash, you've only been in your positions for 1 year, so you are allowed another year.
Can CJ make a motion to approve the slate of Matt as chair and Cash as vice chair?
Yes.
Well, I have a question.
No.
You're not trying to get out of it, are you?
Well, I mean, I'll stick around, but I will say that there have been a few things that have come up with the city recently, and I've been a little bit shy about commenting on them as I am the chair of the commission, and we're trying to get this historic preservation commission or historic preservation ordinance passed, and I don't want to step on any toes, so to speak. Would Cash, would you be interested in taking for the next year the chair seat?
And Matt,
Oh,
would you be
sure,
the
if
vice
it's-
chair?
And I certainly we could swap places. I'm going to it would give an opportunity. And you know what, honestly, Cash, your comments and your attention to detail far exceeds my abilities. I am highly impressed with
Oh,
your.
so this is your way of getting out. of it.
Hey, Cash, Cash, if you need a letter of reference for your resume, you just ask, okay? We'll help you out.
Sure, I'm
So I
happy.
so move the slate of Cash Parker for chair. Matt,
Sure.
I removed the other one, Matt Crabtree for vice chair. Looking for a second?
I'll second. Oh, and
Yay.
Hannibal too. Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the table. I suppose we get to vote now. All in favor of Cash as chair of the Historic Preservation Commission and Matt Crabtree as vice chair.
Aye.
Aye.
I
I
All right, Eric, can I hand the reins over to Cash, considering I talked him into this, I guess?
thought it was effective.
Yes, you may.
I thought it was effective next meeting. Oh, it's effective
No,
immediately.
Yeah,
Is
I
it
was thinking it was utilizing your resources.
Is
Hey,
it
can we
effective
take-
next meeting or immediately? I forget, Eric.
I thought it took place immediately, but
So did I.
we do have two city attorneys here who can correct me if I'm incorrect.
That's true.
I honestly need to double check when it becomes effective. So
I'm pretty sure.
All right. Well, while you check on that, yeah, I appreciate that. There are a few things, and I guess we can bring them up at general discussion, but there's been a few things that I've wanted to comment on, and I certainly did not want to affect any work that we've done on the commission here, and I wanted to comment on with the city council. CJ, you and I talked about it a little bit, and I just think it would be probably better if I'm not chair and commenting on those things.
Is it fair to take a pause from the agenda flow and let Kenneth introduce himself to us?
Well,
What
that's
brought
actually,
him to our honorable group?
well, Cash, actually, that's the next item on the agenda, once we get approval from city attorney's office if I need to run the rest of the meeting or if you get to run it.
Oh, both of you run it right now.
I don't care either way. It's fine with me.
All right. Well, Cash, you want to jump right in here,
Sure.
take over?
Sure, yeah. So I guess that does bring us to our next new business item, which is Kenneth, if you'd like to introduce yourself. I don't know you. I'm Cash Parker. Nice to meet you virtually.
Yeah, hi everyone. Can you hear me okay? Great. Yeah, really excited to join this commission. My name is Ken Chu, so you can call me Ken. I have been in Englewood for about a little over a year now, about a year and a half. I moved here from Thornton. It's so much better here. And I live in District 1, so I'm right on Cherokee, just north of Dartmouth. I work for NeighborWorks America, which is a corporation based out of Washington, D.C. We work in the affordable housing and community development space. And I've been with them for about 6 years now. And one fun fact about me is that prior to working with NeighborWorks America, I had a 20-year career as a costume designer for theater and film and TV.
Wow.
And I don't do that anymore, but so here I am and really excited to be part of this team.
Great. Well, welcome. Thank you for volunteering your time to do this. And I guess welcome to Englewood, sort of. You're relatively new. I think don't all of us live in District 1, or most of us? That used to be the situation. I know.
Where do I live, Matt?
You live in District 2, CJ.
Yep. Two.
I'm 1. I'm District 1.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
one.
one also.
Mm,
I'm not sure which one I am, but I'm in Romans Park area.
So that could either be District 1 or District 2, depending
Mhm.
upon,
I think it's probably me,
I think it's District 2.
District 2. So we're all north of Hamden, huh?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
welcome, by the way. Where do you reside? What are the cross streets?
Chu? Ken?
Me?
He just.
Yeah, I'm right at Cherokee and Dartmouth. Well, Cherokee and Cornell, really. I'm closer to Cornell than I am to Dartmouth.
Okay. District 1.
over in the mostly destroyed Bannock neighborhood.
Very- Lots of changes over there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, welcome. You stepped right into our old business item, which is very old business because it's been going on for 2+ years, 3 years. And I think we're finally about to a resolution tonight. So we'll move on to the old business, which is the Title 16 discussion. And I think, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, we'll open it for discussion, and I'll probably start with Victoria and letting her talk us through the changes that she made after our working session on February 2nd. But I think the culmination of this item is that we need a vote of approval of these changes to send this along to City Council. Is that right, Eric?
Yep, that's correct. We'll need
Okay.
that in order to get it included in the code next, the full Title 16 rewrite.
Got it. So unless anyone's opposed, I'd like to start with Victoria. And just to bring Ken up to speed, we've been working on this rewrite and these changes to our recommended changes. They have to be approved by council, this code, for quite some time. And we had a working session that was close to 3 hours, I think, last time around. And I think we hashed out the remaining issues. But Victoria, why don't you take it from there and just give us an overview of what you did following up on the working session?
Yeah, happy to do so. And your position as chair takes effect at this meeting. So excellent work so far.
Good. I like to follow the rules.
We all do. So since our last meeting and our last working session, the changes that I made were really limited to, and I'm trying to get it exactly. It was under here, I'll share my screen with you so you can all see it. There were changes that I made in real time during our meeting. So, but the issue regarding consent, that was the only change that I made since we last were with each other. And it's with respect to providing the other properties that are nominated within a district with a copy of the designation nomination application, what the effects of that would be, and a provision just advising them of this hearing procedure that would be outlined in the chapter. Because we had talked about that with all property owners for landmark designations being required to consent to that application, and only a simple majority of the properties in the district being required to consent, that there was that gap in individuals who might not have provided their consent with for a district nomination. And this is just to rectify or to provide them with the notice of what this effect of the district nomination would do for them.
When it says written in this electronic age, is email written?
We can specify that email notice would be sufficient. When in our code, when we don't say what we mean by notice, we would go to our another section of the code where we define different procedures for notifying individuals, and it would generally be by certified registered mail. But for in the interest of, or it would also be a posting on the property when we don't know who those individuals are. The issue we would have potentially if we just have this by email is there just might be property owners that might not be readily identifiable to the city. So we would not necessarily have their emails. We would certainly have their addresses and could do like a posting on the property or mail their addresses, which just makes that function a little bit more convenient.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it sounds like it is. I'm guessing notice or written notice is defined elsewhere in the municipal code. And so I don't think we should probably mess around with changing that here. Victoria.
Thanks. I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, do you agree with that, Victoria?
I do. I don't know that we need to add more to this regarding notice in this section.
Was there anything else, Victoria, you wanted to highlight before we open it up for discussion by commissioners?
No, there's nothing else to highlight. So I have all the changes here in this section, and then the clean copy follows it in the agenda packet. Again, these are the changes we had talked about at our last meeting, and a number of them I was making during that meeting process. So I don't, other than that one section we just talked about, there shouldn't be anything new in here. I mean, when in the clean copy, I did try to make some formatting adjustments just to make it look nicer.
Yep. Perfect. Well, thank you for your work, and thanks for spending the almost 3 hours with us on that last meeting, the working session. I'll start with my thoughts on it. It looks good to me. I looked through it. It looks like all the changes that we discussed were integrated. Obviously, we went in detail, I think, section by section at the working session. I don't intend to do that here. Obviously, I'll open this up for general discussion, but it looks good to me. So with that, are there questions, comments, discussion points from anyone?
Well, yes. It's always me, isn't it?
That's okay.
Okay, I just one little quibble in the section on the city council excuse me, procedures. Paragraph A says that the city council will adopt qualified properties based on our recommendation. Then down in paragraph C, it talks about the ordinance to adopt or adopt with, or let's say approve with conditions or deny. If we have recommended that an application be denied, why does the city need to make an ordinance about it? That's my question.
As a city citizen, I think we just need to know what are the steps and what's going to happen when certain things come up.
And I'm reading this. This is page 3 in the red line, section 4. Victoria, do you want to start on that? I'm still reading over what Melinda said.
Sure. So you're talking about in the city council proceedings, why they would be adopting by ordinance.
Right.
So it's a they're act if I don't know. So they're considering whether to adopt by ordinance the qualifying designation. It's the approval that is in the form of an ordinance. If they're denying it, then there's no ordinance that is passed.
Yeah.
And I think that's not quite clear, that it includes rejection as one of the things that an ordinance would be about.
Well, it's under section 5C, it's approving with conditions or denying the application. It's not denying the ordinance. Do you have a suggestion on how we can make that more clear, that we're not passing an ordinance that denies the application? Did you have?
Go ahead, Melinda, if you have a thought.
See, I mean, if we've already denied the application, it wouldn't come before council, would it?
No, the recommendation would. It would still go to council. The final decision rests with the city council.
Yeah, because even if
a recommendation,
they always can.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So yeah, I mean, the way this is structured, anything that this commission does with the application is a recommendation, whether that's deny or approve, and the city council can override that. You know, Victoria, and I'm just thinking aloud here, to make it clear that the denial doesn't require an ordinance. I don't know if in 4C, you could just add a sentence that says, well-written findings shall be issued concerning denial of the historic designation, no ordinance shall be adopted to that effect, or something like that. Like I said, I'm just thinking aloud.
Mhm. Yeah, we can put some additional language to that effect in that section. I'm also thinking about how to revise that on the spot. Another idea maybe to have in section A that the consider adopting by ordinance to approve or approve with conditions the recommendation. So to basically leave out that it would be a denial that wouldn't follow with an ordinance.
Yeah, that would be fine too. I don't have a strong preference. I don't know, Melinda, does that address the concern you have?
That would, I think, satisfy my quibble.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so if we can, because for timing, obviously, we need to get this passed tonight. So if you're able, Victoria, while we're talking, to craft a little proposal, it doesn't matter to me what section, whatever makes more sense to you, and then we can, incorporate that in our vote approving. So, Melinda, did you have anything else? Any other points? I see Matt's hand is raised, but I wanted to give you a chance to finish before I called on him.
No, that was all I had.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
Yeah, so my question is actually further down the document here, and actually it's an interesting question, but I don't want to break up any of the discussions currently happening at this point. I agree that better clarity, and Cash, I agree with how you kind of mentioned that, or in some manner that along those lines. Again, Melinda, I also agree with that. So are we done with that part of the discussion? Can I throw
Yeah, I want to give Victoria a couple minutes while we're talking to
Okay.
come up with that language. So let's move to your point. Unless there's any other discussion about that city council proceeding and denial ordinance point. Seeing none, Matt, let's move on to your point.
Okay, so we refer to protected properties within this document as landmarks or districts. A landmark implies, and there's actually a recent thing that came up that, and I have an idea on this. And a landmark implies a building that, a lot of people may say, well, my house doesn't conform to a landmark. It's not for instance, a really ornate large structure that needs to be saved, but they would still like it to be saved from demolition. There are landmarks in the city, the IOF building, the bank, the old J.C. Penney's building, a lot of stuff on the 3400 block. There's various homes in the city that can be considered as landmarks, but there are also a lot of buildings that contribute to the character of a neighborhood, or structures that contribute to a character of a neighborhood that may not be landmarks necessarily, but are historically significant or carry a historic importance or a neighborhood importance that could be protected. Now, I know this is the 11th hour I'm bringing this up. I wanted to address this idea and see if there's an opportunity to put in another designation of a property. It's not just in a landmark in a district, but rather landmark, district, and or historically significant or neighborhood significant property. Does that make sense, Cash?
I
Well,
think
why-
so.
Huh. I mean, landmarks aren't named landmarks until we call them landmarks. Right now, they've got other names to them. right? If they're approved by History Colorado
Sure.
Department of Interior, they're not called landmarks, I don't think.
Well, let me throw an example in here. CJ, your house is historic. It's a lot of nearly all of Arapahoe Acres is historic in nature. Now, if that doesn't receive a district, designation, and and you wanted to individually protect your home from demolitions, for instance, you have to sell your home, whatnot, you want to protect it from demolition in the future. You could theoretically apply for the landmark designation, and that would and you would likely qualify in your particular scenario, as I would in my house. But when you see the landmark designation plaque, I don't know, I think that may push some people away from doing this. I'll stop beating around the bush. I'll say this could be used as a way for people to protect their homes. And
Kind of like an easement?
not an easement, it's the same designation process. But if their home was built in like 1925, such as mine, I mean, nothing historic happened at my house that I'm aware of, but it is a historic portion of the neighborhood. I wouldn't call it a landmark, but I would call it historically significant to Englewood.
I think that's fair.
If I wasn't part of this commission, I would personally probably say, well, it's not a landmark, it's historically significant to Englewood, but it's not a landmark. And this dawned on me with a chain of events that happened in the city recently, and I'll bring those up during my time at the end of the meeting. But I would like to use this process to protect my home going forward, but I don't think it's fair to call it a landmark, if that makes sense. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
but if you apply for it, it's more than 50 years old. It qualifies with the Department of Interior.
Okay, well, if this is a sanity check, and that makes sense. I mean, you get.
I mean, does anyone else see it differently than me?
I guess I have a question from Matt as the new guy in the group.
Mhm.
Are you saying that we should have language that is separate from landmark and district so that people who are in the neighborhood considering options for themselves who may see landmark and district, and that neither of those would seem to apply to them, and therefore we should use a third term that would open up the opportunity for folks? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. Yeah.
I also have a quick question. So I agree with that completely. I just want to say that I think creating something that allows more of an umbrella and more of an accessibility to everybody in Englewood to be able to protect the things that, are considered, historical. I think that's 100% where we should go. It reminded me of a conversation during the meeting on the 2nd that, like, the train cars, if it was me, I wouldn't see them. I forget if it was Melinda or CJ that brought it up, that said that they're not really a landmark and that there should be wording in there that also allows for people to think of like items like that as historical and to be able to protect them and restore them. And so just kind of tagging on to that if we are going to change language to allow for more accessibility in a single home, I kind of would like us to think about wording that would allow for accessibility with things such as the train car, if that.
Sure, and understand, I hope this doesn't change a lot of the wording. I think the same designation, same process applies. It's just what you call it in the end, or allowing it open. So maybe, Cash, I can kind of see the gears turning there. Maybe you're thinking, oh God, there's a lot of work here at the last minute.
Well, I've got a bunch of thoughts about it, and I don't want to interrupt. So finish your thought before I offer mine.
All right. So, but I agree with you too, Hannah. And I don't know. I think having the opportunity just to put another definition of what it is, landmark, district, or
significant in some way. My own house is an almost undamaged arts and crafts bungalow.
same here.
And so it's an example of an architectural type. And I would certainly like to protect it from developers. if there's some way we can, I mean, I think there's some wording in there already about a significant example of something, but yeah, I wouldn't consider my house a landmark. It's just a nice example of arts and crafts, period.
And I'll say,
But wouldn't you apply? I mean, I guess I'm not catching. Wouldn't you just
Well,
apply? to
as a
be
member of the
landmark?
commission, I'm not allowed to apply. None of us is.
oh yeah, that's a fair point. But nonetheless, though, I mean, and I'm sorry to throw this in at the last minute because this dawned on me during the last couple, actually it was less than last week. But it's been less than a week here, but it dawned on me that, and I think a lot of the same protections apply. I think a lot of the same, everything applies to the document, just what we define it as, and what we could define a definition of it as. So
Yeah.
that's my thought.
So,
Back to you.
so let me comment. I've got a few thoughts about this. So one, the way this is structured already protects everything that's being talked about. It's just a matter of there has to be some term. It happens to be landmark, and that happens to be what comes from the model ordinance that this is based on that encompasses all this. So like the criteria for protection are, whether the property is associated with persons significant in the history of Englewood, whether the property has distinctive characteristics of the type, method of construction, architectural style or period, or represents the work of a master builder or architect, whether the property is yielded or is likely to yield important archaeological discoveries in prehistory or history, whether the property is a visual feature or has a visual feature identifying an area or neighborhood or consists of structures historically and geographically associated with an area. The age of the properties to be considered are typically at least 50 years old. However, exceptions can be made for younger properties that have demonstrated historic significance. The physical integrity of the property, including location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, and association, and then any property listed as a city or Arapahoe County landmark or listed on the state or national register. So those are the criteria. And then up front in this ordinance, the purpose talks about preserving and protecting, this is section A1, preserve and protect buildings, structures, sites, and areas that are reminders of past eras, events, and persons important in local, state, or national history, which provide significant examples of architectural style of the past, which are unique or irreplaceable assets to the city and its neighborhoods, which provide for this and future generations examples of the physical surroundings in which past generations lived or which are archaeologically significant. And then A2 is develop and maintain the appropriate environment for such buildings, structures, sites, and areas, reflecting varied architectural styles and distinguished phases of Englewood's history. So all of those things together cover everything that everyone's talking about. Like I said, I think this model ordinance just had to pick a word to encompass it all, and that happens to be landmark. So I think all those concerns are addressed. I think the more we deviate from the model ordinance, it probably reduces our chances of getting it passed with council, because I think a selling point with council can be, this is based on a model ordinance that's been used in, 67 CLGs are used in some format, mostly like this across the state. So I think that's one practical concern with it. The other practical concern is, I think that kind of if we're changing the term that we're using, landmark and district being the two terms, like you said, Matt, that are applied throughout. If we do that, we're not going to get this passed tonight, and that's going to set us back further, which is, to me, an unacceptable result given how long we've been working on this.
Totally.
I
agree.
guess, can I ask a question? Because I mean, it's really not a matter of definition, right? It's really about nomenclature. So is it possible to, or would it be something to consider to add a statement that says and or other property or structure that meets the following criteria or something like that? I mean, is that an option?
Well, we do have a section that explains what the criteria is that Cash read. And we can include additional criteria if that would be helpful. My thought would be that since it seems that some of the concern is that when citizens hear the terms landmark or district, they might think it has different meaning, and a lot of that really can be addressed once this is enacted through like community organization efforts and frequently asked question pages on the Historic Preservation Commission's website. Like there's ways to have like that community engagement to make sure that citizens know what this means. And that might be another approach down the line in how to go about this.
Okay. I certainly don't want to be difficult in this by any means, and I'll say just one little more piece and then we can move on. I developed the prototype plaque that said historic landmark on it. In fact, I've got that around here somewhere. But my thought is we could have two plaques, one that has for historic landmarks such as the bank, such as the building, such as whatever, and then another one that says historic property.
I actually, yeah, I mean, I have no objection to that at all, because Victoria, you tell me if I'm wrong about this. I'm not sure the ordinance speaks to the plaque or what we have to do with the plaque or what we can put on the plaque or whether you even have to put up the plaque if you don't want to. I don't think that's covered in here, is it, Victoria?
It's not. The plaque is not included in this.
So I think, Matt, I think that leaves us, again, Victoria, you tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I think that leaves us some flexibility as a commission to handle that as we see fit in terms of what's on the plaque or having two different plaques, or like I said, no one's even required to put up the plaque if they don't like it.
So for all of you that have not seen it, this is the example here.
Yes. I personally like that plaque. If I went through the trouble to go through this process, I would put it up on my property. That's just me.
And it's made of about, this is a good 6.5 pounds of bronze here. So,
yes. I mean, is that, so let me just confirm with Victoria. I mean, is that accurate? Let's assume this ordinance, these revisions get passed by council. I mean, as far as giving out plaques and that type of thing, if a landmark designation is achieved and what's on the plaque, I mean, we're free to craft that as we see fit as a commission. Is that fair to say?
Yes, as long as it's been so designated by council.
sure. I mean, the only thing that would like settle a little bit is if it said like, because there's landmark and district. If it was landmark property and district, there may carry other implications of doing this. And I don't want to, like I said, throw something in that hasn't gotten a lot of time to think about. But is it landmark property or district? And then that would.
Again, I think you don't think everything that Cash just read was enough?
I think it is. I think you're right, but.
So that again, if it needs to be changed, it needs to be changed. If we're not going to pass it tonight, then that's fine. But
I want to pass tonight.
I can just tell you that the problem with messing with that was going to end up with us not passing tonight. I can just tell you this, as an attorney working with these documents, is that landmark and district appear throughout this thing. And so if you start messing around with those defined terms, it's going to be really hard to make that consistent in a way that it's ready to roll tonight, because it appears throughout this ordinance, those defined terms do.
Okay.
It does, and if I may, to member 2's point, if we, with this being a matter of like nomenclature and how we're defining landmark or district, if we were to make a change in this section here under the procedures, which is the first point that we define landmark and district, I mean, we can potentially add in like language that I'm not sure what the language would be, but we can add some additional qualifying language in here. You know, in what we are calling a landmark or district, like a historic property, because the idea was that it's the individual property that's the landmark, and then it's the collection of properties that comprise the district.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, what about this? What, again, so that we're not having to change everything throughout the ordinance.
Yeah.
What about in that section where it, you know, section B1, where it makes it a defined term? Applications for a nomination for designation as a historic landmark or historic property or a historic landmark slash property. I'm just, again, thinking aloud here. Would that give you more comfort?
It would. It would.
But it says on A, owner of the property.
That's
Property.
landmark or, yeah, I know. I just,
No, a designation as a historic property / landmark. And then this makes it clear we're going to call it a landmark. What do you think?
I mean, that would make me feel better. I would even design another one of these that said Englewood Historic Property or whatever. I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to cause a problem. I know this is literally 11th hour.
Well, I think that might be less confusing for the average citizen who's maybe would like to apply. And either way, if we ever get this passed, we're going to have to do some PR, you know, that to let the city know what can be done.
So I think those changes are good. I mean, if Victoria is good with those and Matt, that satisfies your concern. Those changes are fine and we don't have to rework the whole thing.
Works for me. Good enough.
It does. Okay. Okay.
All right. I guess, Matt, any other discussion on that point before we leave it, or thoughts?
No, I'll pull my wrench out of the you know, the mechanism right now and let things continue. Sorry.
You're really building up commissioner's choice. I'm looking forward to whatever you have to discuss.
Yeah.
And I know we have to return to the point CJ made in a moment, but are there any other points for discussion before we circle back to or Melinda's point? Sorry, that was you, Melinda. Before we circle back to Melinda's point, are there any other comments or questions or discussion points before we do that? All right. Seeing none, Victoria, I don't know if you've had a chance, just returning to Melinda's point about the ordinance. That's the highlight is what you added, Victoria.
It is. Sorry, I was on mute. The highlight is what I added to help clarify that they're not going to be passing a denial by ordinance. It's just the approval, and that would pick up approve and approve with conditions.
I like that.
Okay.
Okay.
I think it's good. Any other thoughts on that point? Okay. Seeing none. Well, at this point, drum roll, I guess, is there any further discussion before we call for a vote to approve the draft ordinance as modified in this meeting and recommend adoption to City Council? Is there any further discussion?
So do we need to make a motion? Because if
So
so, I so move.
Yep, seeing no discussion, I'll entertain that motion. Is there a second? For the motion?
Second.
Matt is seconded. Eric, do you want to take a roll call on this one?
Absolutely. So I'll go with Chair Cash Parker,
Aye.
Vice Chair Matt Crabtree,
I
Hannah Miles,
Aye.
Melinda Ellswick,
Aye.
CJ Cullinan,
Aye.
okay, and Lauren Cooper is absent, and Ken Chu.
Aye.
All right, well, that motion carries, and so the draft ordinance as revised and amended at this meeting, we, as the Historic Preservation Commission, have recommended that for adoption to council. Thank you, Victoria, very much for all of your work and for attending our working session and so many of our meetings, I think, in the last 3 or 4 months. Thank you very much from the commission for all that. Thank you to all the commissioners. That's been a long process. Brian or Eric, remind me the time frame on when this goes before council now that we've approved the draft recommended ordinance.
It's going as part of a study session on the 27th. Along with,
Do we need to be there to defend it or anything?
I would recommend that you're there if they have any questions. The majority of the meeting is run by our consultants. Because it's going to have some other items, chapters out of the proposed UDC. I think one is signs, one is definitions, and then this one. So if they have any questions, it might be best to have someone present to discuss, how you got to these changes or these updates.
Is that a virtual meeting or a hybrid in-person virtual? Do you know?
They're hybrid.
Okay. I can at least, if not in person, I can commit to doing that. Is that at 6:30 on Monday, the 27th?
I'll have Eric send you all the agenda. I don't know the time. I think, Vicky, do they normally start at 6?
I'm pulling it up right now. You said that was the 27th? The 20th?
It's the 27th, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just say, I mean, just to be perfectly frank, I say virtually because there's of course going to be discussion of a lot of ordinances that aren't germane to our commission. So the ability to do some other things while that's going on would be good for me, but I can commit to at least doing that virtually, if not in person. I don't know, I mean, anyone's welcome to that wants to come. I don't know if others are able to. I think it certainly would be. I'm happy to do it myself, and I've been involved in this since whenever we started it.
Way back when you were a youngin'.
Yeah, I think I was in 12th grade when we started this process. I don't know if anyone else can commit. It probably wouldn't be bad to have other folks from the commission. We can tag team it a little bit. I don't know that we need firm commitments, but does anyone else think they have the ability to attend? I mean, everyone except Ken has been involved in this extensively, but I of course invite Ken to attend as well.
I'll certainly
I
attend
I can probably
virtually.
be there.
Okay.
I can be there. Quick point of order. Is there any concern of open meetings if Victoria, open meetings, if there's more than 3 members of the commission present?
So, first the meeting starts at 6 on the 27th, so just FYI on that. So would there be potentially, yes, but you wouldn't be taking any legislative action. So just when this comes up for discussion, you would all be there before council, and that's the body that would be taking the action. Or well, I mean, at a study session, they're really not taking action necessarily to adopt anything. They're just maybe be having clarifying questions or having have suggestions for different revisions. But as long as you all are just addressing those matters in a public forum, I think we would be okay.
That's a good question, Matt. I think Victoria's point's a good one. I think we're double covered too because the study session public meeting have notice posted.
You're a little muffled there, Cash. Sorry, we couldn't hear
Oh,
you.
sorry. Yeah, sorry. I just said I think that's a good point, but Victoria's point is right. I also think we're double covered because I think the study session is an open meeting that has posted notice and all that too, right, Victoria?
Hey, one point I wanted to add, I saw at the Saving Places conference last weekend, Jason And I told him, I said, you left at a terrible time. You could have waited just 6 more months. And he said, oh, I'm sure you guys are going to be able to move it forward the way it is. So good job.
Yes. With that, that's the only, is everyone hearing me okay? Good. Okay,
Now, we're-
that's the end of our old business. That was the only old business item. So staff's choice, Eric.
Let's see. So the long range planner is working with the GIS department to pull together some of those neighborhood maps. So hopefully we'll have some of those to be able to preview for you next meeting. And that is really all I had.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Thanks for your help on this ordinance too. So we'll move to commissioner's choice. I'll just say thank you again to everyone for the work on the ordinance. That's been a long process, so it's nice to see that go through. I'll go around the room, and since Matt, you're vice chair, and since we've been eagerly awaiting your commissioner's choice, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay, I need to be very diplomatic in the way that I say this, but there's been some recommendations that have come up through Code Next that I don't think everybody's quite aware of. In the very early stages of it, and I have had conversations with several members of council on this thus far, and to their point, it is very early in the process. And I'm sure, well, Eric might be able to shed a little more light on this too, if he wanted to chime in at any point here, but there's a proposal in the city to change the definition of R1 zoning. Effectively altering density in not the entire city, but a very large portion of the city to allow for up to 4 units per lot. I would highly
For
recommend.
how many feet? Go ahead and, you know.
I'm sorry?
For the amount of, you said 4 per lot, but what was the lot size?
7,200 square foot lots, which is
Thank you.
not the standard 50 by 125 lot in Englewood. So if you're down in District 1, most lots are 50 by 125. However, if you have a larger lot such as 60-foot lot, or if you're in District 2, Arapahoe Acres, your lots may be larger than that, may offer the opportunity for that. If you are on the, especially in District 4, where those lots are substantially larger, there is a map. It's part of the Code Next. Eric, I don't know if that's readily available on the website for people to review and to look at.
I'll let Brian hop in there.
Hey, Brian. Sorry, kind of lobbing a hand grenade out here.
Hey,
Well,
what
don't
app's
say sorry,
available to
Matt.
look at?
What you're bringing up is very valid. Please don't apologize for being detailed and aware.
What app are you asking about?
So there is a document that was discussed at a city council study session a few weeks back. Let me bring this up. It's a council communication. It is, stand by.
Are you talking about the map?
Yeah, it's the Code Next plan to change R1 to equivalent of R2. If I bring up the document here, this was a study session comment from January 23rd, 2023. It's land use discussion and housing typology follow-up. Presenting chapter 4 zone districts and uses and housing typology follow-up items from a previous discussion. That should be available on the city website somewhere, I believe, yes.
The sorry, I didn't follow all of that.
Oh, sorry.
There's the map that was presented by our consultants is something that they created that's not a public app. That's a map that they had for questions for council. But we can send out the links if you guys want to watch the meeting that Matt is talking about.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good one to start. There is the council packet, the study session council packet that was put out just ahead of the January 23rd meeting. Of mention starts approximately, and yes, to your point, and to everybody's point, this was proposed by the consultants, and it's certainly not official, and nor has it gone anywhere. There was a fair bit of attention at the last city council meeting regarding this, and there's been some other attention in the community since then.
Can I
And
just ask two questions? Number one, consultants for what? Number two,
code next.
is there any way, Matt, that you can just show the map? Or are you, Brian, are you saying that it's not public, so don't bring it up?
Oh, I think it's all public. It's public
Oh.
information, right? So
But back to the question, consultants for what?
code next.
That's all they're doing is code next.
Code next. Does everybody see a PDF document here?
Yes.
Show the current one first.
So this is the current zoning, as things are defined. There's been different definitions here, in our, the different low density versus high density, but effectively, if we go through this, some of the questions that were asked were, should the R2, R1 districts accommodate 2 to 4 unit building types? If yes, should the 2 to 4 unit building types be accommodated in all R1 districts? There's several questions, and it's related to the 7,200 square foot. And then we go down to the current zoning map, and then this, as I understand, is an illustration of lots over 7,200 square feet. There's multiple options that are being discussed apparently, one of which is only corner lots, which is not this map, but in all, if they chose all areas within the city, and I'll go up here real fast, sorry to keep going around. If yes, should 2 to 4 be accommodated in all districts? And lots larger than 7,200 square feet, corner lots larger than 7,200 square feet, or I guess the third option is a little different here, but we look at this in a worst case scenario, if they choose to change the zoning all across the city to allow this high density on 7,200 square foot lots, this is what it could look like. This is very much a could. I want to bring this up, and the reason why I'm bringing this up with the Historic Preservation Commission is this could very much impact the amount of development in the city. There are noble reasons and noble causes for doing this. It is a concept of encouraging developers to include affordable housing into new developments by increasing density. But there, in discussing with members of the community, there has been a significant concern with the broad brush being proposed here as the worst case scenario. So I don't know if Eric, am I presenting, Eric and Brian, am I presenting this relatively accurately?
Not completely. One of the items is there's no proposed rezoning occurring with the UDC. So I want to make sure that is 100% clear.
Okay.
One of the items that is being discussed is, you are correct, and that there would be an allowance for 2 to 4 unit buildings to be constructed in some of these districts. But the majority of it in the discussion would be tied to affordability standards.
Okay.
But again, these are all council discussions. That's what's going on at these study sessions. And the next one on the housing topic is scheduled for March 13th.
Okay.
So we can definitely send, I think there's been 2 that's covered housing so far, and we're more than happy to provide links to you all. But again, the next one would be on March 13th.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Brian. Obviously, affordable housing is a big issue that's affecting a lot of the Denver metro area right now. The reason why I bring this up at this meeting is that while this does not directly change zoning, this could change in some cases the definition of zoning in some areas to allow higher density that isn't there now, as I understand this. So, on that really positive topic,
Yeah, right.
I don't know how we can get this. I'd like to get this entire document to the commission. Eric, is it possible for you to send this out to the commission members so they could at least see this and make their own opinion? I don't want to sway any opinions by any means.
Sure. And I don't, as it, keeping our focus on the business of the commission, historic preservation, I'm happy to do an agenda item to have a further discussion next meeting, which I believe is March 15th. So 2 days after that study session that Brian mentioned. So I'm happy to do that, obviously with the focus being on historic preservation and topics coming into this commission, but I'm happy to do an agenda item for the next time.
And I bring this up as this could affect the amount of development in the city, which can affect historic preservation.
The other thing I want y'all to keep in mind is part of the Code Next process, we're planning on doing a very large board and commission symposium with our consultants. So that every board that this is associated with, including you, I can give you some examples: Transportation Advisory Committee, Planning and Zoning Commission, BOA. We're going to invite everybody together to have time to review this and make comments to our consultants. So just keep in mind that that's also upcoming. We don't have a date set in stone right now. At the moment, we're trying to get through the initial drafts with council. And once they get those edited and updated, we'll have a final draft that we will take to the boards and commissions. We won't do each one individually, but we'll do them all together.
What type of time frame are you looking for that? I mean, seriously, are we talking summer?
The goal has been for adoption by June 2023, but it's really up in the air right now as we're waiting on the study sessions with council. We're working through those. So once we get our draft document ready, we'll have a more concrete timeline for adoption set.
I just want to recognize that quite a few people are volunteers on these boards and commissions. The sooner they know, the less effect it may have on their job and family.
Anything else, Matt? Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Oh, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you very much. And Brian, thank you for your definition of this.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, for the additional info. And I think we'll probably pick up a little further discussion on that next meeting. So with that, let me just go around the horn, I suppose. Melinda, did you have anything for Commissioner's Choice?
Yes, and can I say, Matt, like our neighborhood, for instance, is zoned R2, even though it is small lot size. They still think they can cram two and have been doing it into small lot sizes, whereas further south, it's large lot size and zoned R1. Go figure. But maybe it would be good for them to share the pain. No, the only other thing I had, Ken, gee, I'm really pleased to have somebody who's works in affordable housing. Fun fact about me, I'm a longtime volunteer with Habitat for Humanity. So I'm all about affordable housing. And just recently, Habitat Metro Denver completed a couple of houses in the Curtis Park neighborhood, which in Denver, which is mostly a historic district. And they got permission to build those houses because they designed them specifically to blend in with the neighborhood. And gee, why can't we do something like that? So that was just a piece of news that I had.
I'm also formerly a Habitat regular. I volunteered for Habitat for a long time too. So before, I think possibly around the same time you were, Melinda.
Yeah, I think we were all on the electrical crew at the same time.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Thank you, Melinda. Anything else, or was that all you had?
That was it.
Great. CJ, anything for Commissioner's Choice? You're muted, CJ.
Yeah, no, anyway. So one of the things that we did, There we go. Colorado's most endangered places. I got a whole bunch of these, enough for each commissioner. The Colorado Preservation Inc., this is their job, is to find these different places across Colorado. And one that they lost was the Craig Depot, which was a bummer, but they saved the R&R Market place. Where was that down? San Luis Valley, that type of place. So very sophisticated, but better, more sophisticated than me holding this thing up. But what's really cool is CBS 4 works with them, and they have camera people, and then one of the narrators is one of the reporters. And it is really cool. It's a half-hour program coming up. When I find out, I'll definitely get it to Eric to send out to you guys. It talks about these different buildings, and what's so neat this year compared to years in past, well, not in the last couple of years, is considering things that are not your traditional white mansion owned type of places. It's a small feminine group that worked in this one community for education. It had to do with, a homestead, the Far View Center of the Mesa Verde, what do you call that? Big park. What do you call that, you guys? Mesa Verde Park. Anyway, it's one of the older buildings that was done, and they were talking about tearing it down. So that's what these groups do. The other thing that they brought up at the conference that was really one of those things that tickled my heart was May is National History Month. And what did different communities do to celebrate that or to bring awareness to that? One of the communities did a coloring of one of their historic groups and compared the different colorings in different ages, and they won ice cream or something. Someone else went ahead and had art shows, and I was thinking, wow, of course my mind just went crazy. I was like, wouldn't it be cool like to do an art show of different people's perspectives of history in Colorado? Now, granted, it's February, right? I mean, how many artists can go ahead and do blah, 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 and here it is for May. But it really got me to thinking that either with the society and commission or in combination, to do something like this that does bring to awareness the different pieces of history that we have in our community and maybe just bring it to light. Anyway, it just got me thinking. So if there's anything that you're thinking, I'd love to hear what you have to think out loud.
Thank you, CJ. Appreciate it. Hannah, anything for Commissioner's Choice?
Yeah, I was listening to you talk, CJ. I just came back from Phoenix. I was visiting my cousin, and I went to Old Town Chandler. It's a historical little neighborhood. Anyway, it was so nice to be away from negative-degree weather, but was eating dinner. Anyway, went downstairs, and there was like a little speakeasy down there, but they forgot that it existed until somebody had the restaurant had taken over. They went down there, they realized there was a basement, they had found a bunch of historical artifacts and turned it, into the speakeasy that it was back then. But it reminded me of a few, I forget how many meetings it was ago, but we were talking about kind of tracking the demolition that was happening in Englewood and being able to kind of step in before those things happen and really be aware of those. And we were thinking about how we were going to make that accessible to the public, like if we were going to post it on the website or what we were going to do. And I realized we've been dealing with a lot of other things the past few meetings, but now that we've kind of wrapped those up, I didn't know if we wanted to bring that back kind of into the light and see what we can do to kind of help be aware of what's going to happen, whether it's with zoning or whatever, but to actively be taking care of that, so nothing gets demolished without us being able to at least act on it. And then actually, CJ, while you were talking, For May, we're doing something cool down at the Slate for Denver because that's going to be our 1-year anniversary of opening up the Slate Hotel in Emily Griffith's old Opportunity School. But we're thinking of doing a social media campaign on our end. But when you were talking, I was thinking it might be cool, and I don't know how realistic it would be, but to do our own campaign of asking children like what Englewood means to them. And then asking people in different generations also, what does it mean to you? And kind of making that our thing. You could make it into an art thing. You can, we can write it on a wall. You can have kids walk up and write what they think, but that might be a way to really tie in the old with the new and really find out what Englewood means. I don't know. I thought that might be something interesting and unique to do for History Month in May.
Yeah, the demolition discussion, I know we've had that discussion several times, I guess, over the past couple of years. I mean, we can certainly revisit that and make that an agenda item to talk about next meeting as well. And then Ken, welcome again. Thanks for coming to your first meeting, and we'll look forward to working with you. Do you have anything for Commissioner's Choice?
No, thank you for the warm welcome.
Yeah, great. Well, with that, I think that's the end of the agenda, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. And before I do that, though, Eric, can you hang out for just like 2 minutes after we're off the recording?
Sure.
Great. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. We are adjourned at 7:44 p.m.
Well,
Bye.
thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Again, thank you, Vicky, for everything.
Good night.
You're welcome. Good night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Kat,
Thanks.
do you want me to stick around?
You don't have to. I was just going to ask it. I mean, I was going to ask Eric a couple of logistical questions. So just with me being chair, you send me stuff for the agenda?
I can.
Sorry about that. I accidentally hit the wrong button there. But yeah. So Cash, yep, you would be responsible for crafting the agenda each month. We usually like to have that the Wednesday, a week before, Wednesday or Thursday. And then if there's any other items that like this time around, I had emailed Matt and just reminded him to include the election of officers and the introduction of new members and stuff like that. So
okay.
Eric,
that sounds good. Well, Matt, and then I assume, if folks, I think I've done this, if other folks on the commission have agenda items, they email to you, Eric, and then you filter it to me. Is that kind of how that works?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, Matt, I'll put the zoning deal on the agenda for next month, so we can have a forward discussion about that.
do you want me to send you over the template for the agenda, or Eric, can you send that? Which one do you prefer?
It doesn't matter.
I'll send it right now.
And then, Eric, I'll probably be talking with you too in advance of that council study session, about whether I'll be there in person or virtually. Like I said, it might just be easier virtually because that sounds like there's going to be a lot of other stuff besides our ordinance on that agenda for council.
Okay. Yeah. And just a heads up, I'm out. I'll be in Mexico the week before that study
cool.
session.
Sure.
But if you need to talk to anybody in the department, you can always just talk with Brian as well.
Okay. That sounds good. So good. Well, I'll look for that stuff next month. And Matt, I imagine I'll probably see you at least virtually for the council study session.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I'll be present for that.
Great. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, very good.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot.
Have a good one. See you guys.
See you guys.
Bye.